So Sheryl Swoopes has said quite a lot of things. About the Indiana Fever, and they've just all been wrong.
Sheryl Swoopes doesn't feel content. Caitlin Clark is the focal point of the Indiana Fever's team, which was stocked with elite talent in one of the largest off-season acquisitions in WNBA history. But this is where things get interesting. For months, Swoopes publicly questioned Indiana, saying that no elite player would want to sign there and that Clark would struggle. Now,
Made up. Sheryl Swoopes literally made up that there was locker room drama in the Indiana Fever, and all they're talking about is the vets have said to Kelly Krauskopf, and
those statements have come back to haunt her. And in this video, we're dissecting why Swoopes is upset, how the Fever disproved her, and what this means for the future of the NBA. Let's get. Sheryl Swoopes has been one of the most outspoken critics of the Indiana Fever's off-season moves, and now that they've made some new additions, she is furious.
Sydney Colson's a really good locker room guy, or a locker room player. She's a fantastic locker room player, and she always is. She'll be a fan favorite in no time.
For months, she's been saying that Caitlin Clark wouldn't draw top talent, that Indiana wasn't a desirable place to play, and that no star would want to play with her. However, reality has set in, and for a while, it seemed like she was determined to paint Indiana as a team that no one would want to join. She kept saying that Clark's arrival wouldn't fix anything, that the Fever were still a mess, and that free agents wouldn't be lining up to play there. However, guess what? That narrative has been completely shattered one by one, as top players have committed to Indiana, creating what looks to be a true contender, and Swoopes isn't handling it well. At first, she tried to minimize the impact of their signings by downplaying the impact of players like Donana Boner, Natasha Howard, and Sydney Colson. But the league noticed that the Fever wasn't just bringing in talent. They also brought in experience, leadership, and a winning mentality. These weren't just role players looking for a paycheck. They were veterans who had won championships, played in high-stakes games, and knew exactly what it took to compete at the highest level. Got really interesting. For months, Swoopes claimed that Indiana had no chance of acquiring elite players, that the locker room was toxic, Caitlin Clark would find it difficult to win, and that Indiana wasn't a destination franchise. However, when you look at what actually happened, the exact opposite was true. Let's take a moment to discuss Donana Boner. She is not only a talented player, but also one of the WNBA's most admired veterans. She has won titles, advanced to the finals, and understands what it takes to get there. When a veteran like Boner sees potential in a squad, it indicates something genuine is happening. So joining the Fever was more than just about money. It was about believing in what they're creating. Tasha Howard, another massive addition, she brings elite defense rebounding and the ability to stretch the floor. She fits perfectly with the way the Fever want to play, and she knows how to win. She's played for championship teams, and she understands the kind of effort and mentality required to compete for a title. And let's not forget Sydney Colson. She might not be a superstar in terms of stats, but her impact goes beyond the numbers. She's a leader, a defensive specialist, and one of the best locker room presences in the entire league. When a team wants to build culture, a player like Colson is exactly who you want, and now Indiana has all these pieces fitting together perfectly. But what really stings for Swoopes is that this completely destroys everything. She's been saying she tried so hard to push the idea that Caitlin Clark wouldn't be able to attract star players, that she'd struggle to gain the trust of her teammates, and that the Fever would remain a bottom-tier franchise in. Instead, they're turning into one of the most dangerous teams in the WNBA. And everyone is taking notice. Even Clark herself has been vocal about how excited she is to play alongside these veterans. She's talked about how much she respects their experience, how much she's looking forward to learning from them, and how she believes this team has everything it needs to compete at a high level. And let's be real, this kind of roster building doesn't just happen by accident. The Fever's front office had a clear plan, and they executed it flawlessly. It's not just about getting good players, it's about getting the right players. The Fever could have gone after younger, unproven talent. But instead, they focused on experience, leadership, and defense. They wanted players who could help Clark adjust to the WNBA, who could guide the young corp, and who knew how to handle the pressure of being on a contending team. And they nailed it. The reaction from fans has been incredible. Fever fans are hyped, and for good reason. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark anymore. This is about building a team that can win championships. And the fact that these veteran players are choosing to play in Indiana completely flips the script on everything that's been said about the team. But let's not forget about the people who aren't happy. Specifically Sheryl Swoopes, because she's not just frustrated, she's livid. She's been vocal about how she feels about the Fever's moves, and it's clear she's struggling to accept that she was completely wrong. She tried to undermine Indiana's reputation, but the players themselves proved her wrong. And that's what's really driving her reaction, because at the end of the day, players don't listen to media narratives, they talk to each other, they know where they want to go, based on real experiences, not just what someone on the outside is saying. And right now, the word around the league is that Indiana is building something special. So where does this leave Swoopes? Well, she could admit she was wrong. Acknowledge that Indiana actually did attract elite talent, and give credit where it's due. But instead, she's doubling down. She's still pushing the idea that the Fever aren't contenders, that they're overhyping their signings, and that this team won't live up to expectations. But at this point, it's getting harder and harder to take her seriously, because the reality is clear: the Fever are for real. They've built a roster that can compete. They've stacked their team with experience, and they've surrounded Caitlin Clark with the best possible players to help her succeed. And if the early reactions from WNBA analysts are any indication, this team is about to shock a lot of people. The season hasn't even started yet, but one thing is obvious: Indiana is coming, and they're coming fast. They're not just trying to be competitive, they're trying to win it all, and no matter how much certain people might try to downplay it, the truth is right in front of us. The Fever aren't just back, they might be stronger than ever. And now the rest of the league has no choice but to pay attention. Because with the talent they've assembled, the chemistry they're building, and the momentum they've gained, Indiana Fever isn't just another team anymore. They're a legitimate threat. And for Sheryl Swoopes, that's the one thing she never wanted to admit. The Indiana Fever's transformation into a powerhouse isn't just about stacking talent, it's about changing the narrative for years. This was a team struggling to find its identity. They were at the bottom of the league, trying to rebuild, but lacking the pieces to truly compete now. In just a short span of time, they've gone from being overlooked to becoming one of the most talked about WNBA teams, which is why this topic has grown so divisive. Those who questioned Indiana, who spent months adamant that no stars would join, are watching all of this develop with a mixture of surprise and frustration, as Sheryl Swoopes. Caitlin Clark claimed that the team wasn't a desirable place to be and that the Fever were doomed to fail, but reality has shown that this isn't the case. One by one, veteran players have decided to participate in this project, and that completely upends everything. Danana Boner's decision to join Indiana sends a loud message that this team is for real. She had the option to stay where she was comfortable or pursue a championship elsewhere, but she saw something in this team, in this city, at this particular moment that speaks volumes. Natasha Howard is another veteran who has experienced long playoff runs and knows what it takes to succeed. Her addition improves Indiana's defense, which they sorely needed, but more significantly, she brings a championship mindset that can elevate an entire team. This is exactly what's eating at Swoopes and others who have criticized Indiana's ascent, because the team's success is more important than individual talent. The Fever's front office didn't just throw money at random players. Instead, they strategically built a roster that maximizes the strengths of their young core and complements Caitlin Clark's skill set. This is the kind of well-considered decision-making that transforms a struggling franchise into a contender. But even with all of this, Swoopes is doubling down and trying to convince people that Indiana isn't a serious threat. The Fever are creating a winning culture, creating a winning atmosphere, and positioning themselves for long-term success, rather than merely acquiring talent for the sake of it. One of the main accusations made by Swoopes is that Caitlin Clark is incapable of leading a team at the professional level. However, the way her new teammates have spoken about her, the respect they have shown her, and the joy they get from playing with her tell a different story, and that claim is already beginning to crumble. Clark isn't walking into a locker room full of resentment or division. She's stepping into an environment where her teammates believe in her. And that's what makes this so frustrating for people like Swoopes, because the Indiana Fever are proving that everything she said was wrong. Not only are they bringing in elite players, but those players are excited to be there. They see the potential, they see the opportunity, and they see a path to winning. There's also something deeper at play. Here, Swoopes has been a legend in the WNBA, a trailblazer who helped shape women's basketball. But lately, her words have felt more like an attempt to tear down the league's biggest rising star rather than uplift the game. That's why her reaction to Indiana's success feels so telling. Instead of celebrating the growth of a franchise, she's acting as if it's a personal loss. And let's not forget how other WNBA veterans are responding to this, while Swoopes has been vocal in her criticism. There are plenty of other legends who have embraced the Fever's rise. They see what's happening for what it really is. A turning point for the WNBA. More eyes on the league, more excitement, more competition. That's good for the game, but for those who were hoping Indiana would fail. This is a nightmare scenario because now it's clear that the Fever aren't just a fun story, they're a legitimate force. The pieces are in place, the momentum is there, and the players believe that's the formula for something. Sheryl Swoopes is frustration is understandable. In a way, she spent so much time pushing a narrative that has now been completely dismantled, and at this point, her only move is to continue denying the reality, but it won't alter the current situation. Indiana is here and is creating something genuine, and the rest of the league is formally on notice. Let's discuss what comes next. With a combination of young and seasoned leadership, the Fever's redesigned roster isn't just about this coming season, it's about long-term success. The Fever's front office deserves a lot of praise since Caitlin Clark is still in the early stages of her career. Aaliyah. Boston is still growing, and they now have the ideal mentors in place to help them advance. The key to staying at the top in the WNBA, where dynasties can rise and fall quickly, is to build a foundation rather than just build a competitive team overnight. As we watch the results of that work come to fruition, the truth is that the Fever isn't over yet. They've already made waves with their off-season moves, but this is just the beginning. As Clark keeps improving, Boston advances, and these new veterans become a part of the system. This team will only get better. Meanwhile, Swoopes and others who doubted Indiana are left searching for ways to minimize what's happening. But at this point, the evidence is overwhelming. The Fever are not only a contender, but they're also becoming one of the league's most well-rounded teams, and that's not just an opinion, that's a fact. What does this mean for the WNBA as a whole? It means parity, more competitive balance, more excitement for fans, and most importantly, the league is expanding. The Fever's ascent is evidence that any team can rebuild properly, and it's paving the way for what could be one of the most exciting seasons in WNBA history. There will always be pushback when a team goes from struggling to dominating, but that pushback doesn't change reality. And the truth is that this team is unique. The Fever has done something that few teams have ever been able to do. They've turned doubt into dominance. And no matter how hard people like Swoopes try to stop it, they can't stop what's coming because Indiana isn't just trying to win. They're trying to change the game. The only question now is how far this team can go. The pieces are in place, the foundation is set, and the Fever are prepared to prove themselves. The season is quickly approaching, and when it starts, all eyes will be on Indiana, and the doubters have had their say. Once the games start, though, the Fever will let their play speak for them, and if their off-season moves are any indication, they're about to send a message. Nobody will be able to overlook the Indiana Fever's recent game-changing move, which is quite unsettling for some. The WNBA is about to get wild this season, so stay tuned for more updates, and we'll see you in the next one. Caitlin Clark is not just a rising star, she's reshaping the entire league. The fans ignored the critics and built a championship-caliber team, and now they're coming for the title. But will it all come together? If you love basketball, hit like